Now, it's been more than a week since jihadists and separatist forces in Mali launched a massive military campaign to try and oust the ruling junta. In the first day of that offensive, Mali's defence minister was killed. And since then, while the attacks have not been as headline-making, they have continued. Rebels have taken a strategic northern military stronghold and are also seeking to blockade the capital, Bamako. Well, let's dive deep then into the story. Wassim Nasr, our terrorism expert, with me here in the studio in Paris. Wassim, hello to you. We're about day 8 into this offensive. What would you say is the state of play on the ground right now, and how did we get here?
Well, to make it easier to understand, we're going to look at a map and we're going to see how it unfolded on the first day and what were the military facilities that were attacked, actually. And the attacks happened all over the country, as we're going to see. So all the yellow explosions are actually the attacks that were conducted in a coordinated way between Jinim jihadis and the FLA rebels. They fought together and not along each other in Kidal and Gao. But the other places that we see, Mopti, Sevare, Kati, it was only Jinim. And as you said, they succeeded in killing the Minister of Defense. And when you look at the map also, a very interesting thing happened in the north. You see the arrows that we have. Actually, the arrows are the retreat of the Russian Africa Corps after a deal with the FLA and Jinim, actually. And as far as we know, they left Kidal, as you know, but it also left Tessalit, a very major military facility in the north on the border with Algeria, all the way to Aguelhok, and they left Tessit all the way to Gao. It is said that they're going to leave also Aguelhok towards Anefis, like they left Kidal for Anefis, but the dots that we see is the presumed retreat that could come in the upcoming days. And we have footage of Africa Corps fighters leaving Kidal, actually. Maybe we can see it. And we see actually that a deal was cut because they were able to retreat here from Kidal, and because also, as we saw on the map, they went through Jinim territory without being shot at. And many people think it's just a deal with the FLA, but also a deal with Jinim, and we have a rare footage of Jinim, which didn't communicate with footage actually about the attacks in Kidal. Where we will see it. It's Jinim fighters in Kidal on day 1, meaning they were there, and along the FLA, they let and they allowed, and here they are, they allowed the Russian fighters to leave without being shot at. And this is really something to be taken into consideration, knowing that the first communique of Jinim regarding those attacks addressed Russia, asking Russia not to get into the fight in order to have a future good relation. And since then, other attacks happened, for example, in Hombori. We're going to look at footage of Jinim fighters overwhelming and attacking the very symbolic Hombori facility, which was occupied also by the French army at the time. And I got to know, for example, that the Malian military retreated to the mountains in order to avoid being massacred. And here we see Jinim fighters like in the facility, and we see the landscape, which is very noticeable. But we know also, and this is also important, that Africa Corps came later back to Hombori to take out the Malian military that was still there. And we have footage, here it is. This is a helicopter of the Africa Corps, and we see some of the Malian military getting to the helicopter to be taken out of Hombori. And why is it important? Because many people think that Russia did not put up a fight. Actually, Africa Corps did not put up a fight. They did in Kidal, but they had to make choices because they have not much assets at hand. And in order to protect the capital and also the airport, they had to drop the north in order to avoid another massacre that we talked about here, the massacre of Tinzouaten, where they lost 80 of their men back in 2024, actually.
Okay, so we will talk a bit more about Russia in a moment. I want to ask you about what this means for Russia going forward now in Mali. But before we do, let's look at the internal kind of political dynamics now in Mali. I mean, the defense minister has been killed. What are things looking like on the political level in the wake of that?
Well, it's a historic moment because actually it's the first time that we see rebel movements of the north allying in the open and even claiming their alliance with Jinim, which is still an Al-Qaeda offshoot in the region. And it's actually the fact that they attacked in a coordinated way, in a simultaneous way, that led to this outcome, meaning pushed the Russians out of many facilities in the north and pushed them to make choices, actually. And this happened on the political level because, as you know, Bamako denounced or renounced on the Algiers agreements of 2015 and labeled those rebel movements as terrorists, meaning equally as a JNIM, and so they got them closer together. Because, as you know too, those rebel movements aren't like the best friends of JNIM, or were not the best friends of JNIM. But actually here in France 24, we broke the story a year ago, saying that actually they got an agreement together. It was back in March 2025. And today what was put at play is this agreement, knowing also that many Malian opponents, political opponents, were pushed to exile or put in jail. Even Shogel Maiga, for example, the former minister of the former head of the government under the junta, is in jail now. We know people like Mariko, which is a Marxist, who went to JNIM territory a week ago to take out 4 Malian military who were abducted by JNIM. We know that also Imam Diko, who's in Algiers, is also trying to find a solution or find something, a deal actually, with JNIM, as long as other opponents who, and some of them are not even are Christian, like Sissoko, you see. So the policies of Bamako, and this is the important part of it, and the choices they made, full-blown military options, and squeezing and crushing the opponents, crushing the press, crushing the NGOs, led to this outcome where contradictory interests of those opponents at the end of the day came together for this outcome. But as we speak, they still hold on power because Russia and Africa Corp succeeded, even though the Minister of Defense was killed, in enabling them to still hold power in Bamako.
Russia hasn't been profoundly weakened, though, by all of this, hasn't it? I mean, it looks very weak now. As you say, there was some kind of deal for them to come out of the north, but they've pulled out. And what's left of their alliance now with the junta?
Well, actually, we should understand that the primary objective of the Africa Corp and of Russia is to maintain the junta. The primary objective of the junta is to maintain power. So they accomplished the contract. Okay. They respected the contract. If we look at it this way, because that's the way it is, but if we look at it in terms of counterterrorism, for example, of course, they did not achieve anything. Before, then, now, and before, you see? And even their presence was much more counterproductive tactically because it fueled the jihadi ranks, actually. And as you know, and as we said here so many times, today jihadis have a scope of activity much larger than a few years back in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. And here we see that the partnership, the military partnership with Russia against jihadis isn't working out. But still, it's working out in terms of holding on to power and securing the power of the juntas in all 3 countries.
Okay, interesting. So much. Thank you so much for your analysis. Wassim Nasr for us there on the programme.